I didn't go to the mating ball to find a mate. I went to steal food. I hadn't eaten properly in 4 days. My hands shook so badly I could barely lace my boots. My vision swam. My wolf hadn't stirred in months. I wasn't desperate for love. I was desperate to stay alive. So I slipped into a palace where omegas weren't welcome, and kings chose queens. I didn't expect to collapse on the marble floor. I didn't expect the entire hall to fall silent. And I definitely didn't expect the Alpha King himself to catch me as I fell. His hands were the last thing I felt before the darkness took me. Strong. Warm. And shaking, as if he had been waiting for me. Welcome to Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales. Before we dive in, I'd love your support. Kindly hit the likes button and let the story hit 200 likes. Also, subscribe, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. Your engagement means the world to me. Now let's begin. I hadn't eaten in 4 days. Not a full meal. Not even a half one. Just a crust of bread someone dropped outside a tavern. A thin broth a merchant pitted me with. A handful of berries I wasn't even sure were safe. By the 4th day, hunger stops being pain. It becomes something else. A fog. A weakness that sinks into your bones and makes standing feel like lifting mountains. A quiet that settles in your head and convinces you that maybe lying down in an alley and closing your eyes wouldn't be so bad. I was 20 years old and already thinking like someone ready to die. The mating ball glowed at the end of the capital's main street like a promise meant for other people. Gold banners hung from every balcony. Music drifted into the cold night air. The palace windows burned bright with candlelight and magic, reflecting off the polished stone so the whole building looked like it was made of fire. Alphas in formal black and silver lined the steps. Nobles in jewel-colored silk swept past laughing. Omegas arrived in clusters, cheeks flushed, eyes bright, escorted by family members and hopeful friends. They were here to be chosen. I was here to steal. My dress was too thin for the season. My cloak was mended so many times it barely counted as fabric anymore. I'd washed in a fountain 2 streets away and braided my hair with numb fingers, hoping I could pass for someone's distant cousin. Someone forgettable. Someone who belonged. The guards barely glanced at me. They never do when you look small enough. Inside, the palace swallowed me. Warmth hit first. Then scent. Roasted meats. Sweet breads. Melted sugar. Spices. Butter. Wine. My stomach twisted so violently I had to grab the wall to stay upright. The ballroom opened before me in a spill of light. Crystal chandeliers floated overhead, glowing like captured moons. The marble floor shone so brightly I could see my reflection in it, pale, hollow-eyed, trying very hard not to look like a starving stray who had wandered into a dream. Long banquet tables curved along the walls, already heavy with food. Real food. Whole roasted birds. Glazed fruits. Wheels of cheese. Towers of pastries. Bowls of steaming dishes whose names I didn't even know. Music thundered. Laughter rang. Wolves circled the floor in slow, deliberate dances meant to show strength and grace. I pressed a hand to my abdomen. Just one plate, I told myself. Just one. Then I'd leave before anyone noticed. I moved along the wall, keeping my head down, trying to breathe through the dizziness. Every step sent a wave of weakness through my legs. The first table I reached nearly ended me. The scent was unbearable. I reached out, and my hand shook so badly I spilled an entire stack of small cakes onto the floor. No one noticed. They were too busy watching the raised dais at the far end of the hall. Where he stood. I didn't know it was the Alpha King at first. I just felt him. The way every conversation seemed to soften around that space. The way wolves subtly oriented themselves without realizing. The way even the chandeliers seemed to cast more light in that direction. He was tall. Broad-shouldered. Dressed in deep black formal wear threaded with silver sigils. Dark hair brushed his collar. His presence was heavy. Not oppressive. Gravitational. He wasn't smiling. He was watching. And though the entire ball revolved around him, he looked utterly alone at its center. A sharp cramp cut through my stomach. I looked away. Food. I needed food. I lifted a small plate from the stack and reached for the nearest dish. My fingers brushed the warm metal serving spoon, and for one glorious second, I imagined actually eating. Then the room tilted. Not dramatically. Just enough. The music stretched strangely. The lights doubled. The scent grew too thick to breathe. I tightened my grip on the edge of the table. Too late. My vision darkened from the edges inward, like someone drawing a curtain. I remember the sound first. A collective intake of breath. Then the floor rushed up. I didn't hit it. Hands caught me. Strong ones. Warm. They wrapped around my arms, my back, my waist, pulling me against a solid chest. The scent that filled my lungs wasn't food. It was smoke. Pine. Winter air. And something deep and powerful that made my dormant wolf stir for the first time in months. Easy, a male voice said. Low. Controlled. Right beside my ear. My knees gave out completely. Those hands tightened. The world vanished. I woke to warmth. Not the sharp, intrusive heat of a crowded hall, but a steady, surrounding warmth like being wrapped in something alive. My head rested on something firm. Breathing. I opened my eyes. I was on a couch in a side chamber, half reclined against a broad chest. A heavy fur throw covered my legs. Firelight flickered across dark stone walls. The music was distant now, muted. A heartbeat thudded beneath my cheek. Slow. Powerful. My gaze traveled upward. Black fabric. Silver fastenings. A strong throat. A sharp jaw shadowed with evening stubble. And eyes. Dark. Focused. On me. I froze. He didn't move. Didn't startle. Didn't pull away. He simply watched me wake as if he had been doing nothing else. You fainted, he said. I tried to sit up. The room spun. A hand pressed gently but firmly between my shoulder blades, keeping me against him. Don't, he murmured. Not a command. Concern. My throat felt raw. My limbs felt like wet cloth. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I'll go. Stay. The word carried weight. I stilled without meaning to. How long since you ate? He asked. The question startled me. I hesitated. His eyes sharpened. How long? 4 days. The heartbeat beneath my cheek changed. Just slightly. But I felt it. His jaw tightened. Who did this to you? No one had ever asked me that before. I swallowed. No one, I said. The lie sounded thin even to me. He studied my face for a long moment. Then he shifted carefully, easing me more fully against him, and reached for the small table beside the couch. A bowl of broth. Steam curled from it. He lifted the spoon. Drink, he said. My mouth filled with water. I shouldn't, I whispered. You will. He held the spoon to my lips. I hesitated only a second before opening my mouth. Warmth spread across my tongue. Salt. Herbs. Real nourishment. I made a small, involuntary sound. His gaze darkened. Not hunger. Something deeper. Something troubled. He fed me slowly, one careful spoon at a time, watching my breathing, my color, my hands. When my fingers twitched weakly, he shifted the bowl into one hand and gathered my cold ones in the other, rubbing warmth back into them. No one had touched me like this in years. Not without wanting something. Not without looking past me. What is your name? He asked quietly. Ophelia. The name settled between us. He repeated it. And something about the way he did made my chest ache. When the bowl was empty, he didn't move away. Didn't set me aside. He remained exactly where he was, as though letting go might do something dangerous. You were not invited, he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a knowing. No, I admitted. Why did you come? I hesitated. Then decided the truth was easier. I was hungry. Silence. Firelight danced. Somewhere beyond the wall, the ball continued. Music. Laughter. Futures being chosen. He looked down at me. And in his eyes I saw something I hadn't expected. Pain. Not the sharp kind. The kind that has lived somewhere too long. Stay at the castle, he said. The words landed heavily. I blinked. What? Stay, he repeated. Eat. Sleep. Recover. I can't, I said quickly. I don't belong here. I only came for food. I'll leave as soon as I can stand, I swear. I'm not asking, he said softly. I felt it then. The difference between an alpha and a king. My name is Alaric, he said. And I am not in the habit of letting broken wolves walk back into the cold. I stared at him. You don't even know me. His gaze did not waver. I know you collapsed in a room full of power and pride, and no one moved until I did. I hadn't noticed. That tells me enough. He adjusted the fur around my shoulders. Stay, he said again. Let me court you properly. Let me give you what has been denied you. I shook my head faintly. Why? For the first time since I woke, he looked away. Just slightly. Because, he said quietly, when I touched you. Something tight passed over his expression. The pain stopped. I didn't understand. Not then. But I would. And by the time I did, there would be blood on the marble floors of this palace. And enemies behind every smile. And love standing directly in the path of danger. I expected guards. A cold room. Interrogation. At best, a stern dismissal and a loaf of bread sent after me as pity. I did not expect silk sheets. Or the faint crackle of a hearth. Or the feeling of being gently laid down like something fragile. When I woke again, it was to quiet. Not the hollow, aching quiet of hunger. But the full, heavy quiet of safety. The bed beneath me was enormous, draped in dark fabrics that smelled faintly of pine and smoke. Pillows cradled my head. My body felt wrong. Not weak. Not shaking. Warm. I lifted my hands in front of my face. They were clean. My nails trimmed. My skin no longer gray with cold. A soft knock came at the door before it opened. A woman stepped in carrying a tray. She was older, silver threaded through her dark hair, her posture composed in the way of someone who had spent her life in halls like these. You're awake, she said gently. Good. The healers were worried you'd slept yourself back into emptiness. Where am I? I asked. East guest wing, she replied, setting the tray on a low table. The Alpha King's personal floor. My breath caught. That couldn't be right. Before I could ask anything else, she pulled the lid from the tray. Steam rose. Bread. Fruit. Eggs. Thick soup. Real butter. The scent alone made my eyes burn. You must eat slowly, she warned, reading my face. Your body's been in deprivation. If you rush, you'll make yourself ill. I nodded. She handed me a cup of warm tea and helped prop pillows behind my back. When I took my first careful sip of soup, warmth spread through my chest like something being returned to its rightful place. Who are you? I asked quietly. Mara, she said. Housekeeper to this wing. And apparently, today, you're jailer. I startled. She smiled softly. A joke. Mostly. Why am I here? I asked. Her expression shifted. She should not be, she said carefully. But you are. I lowered my gaze to the bowl. He carried you, she added, surprising me. Out of the ballroom. Past every noble house. Into his private corridor. Do you know how long it has been since anyone saw the king touch someone that way? I shook my head. Neither do I, she said. Because it hasn't happened. My fingers tightened around the spoon. What happens now? I whispered. Mara hesitated. Now, she said, you eat. You rest. And you try not to think about what kind of trouble you've fallen into. She squeezed my shoulder gently and left. Trouble found me less than an hour later. There was no knock this time. The door opened, and the room changed. Not physically. The air thickened. My skin prickled. And before I even saw him, I knew. He stood just inside the doorway, no longer dressed for ceremony. He wore a dark shirt open at the throat, sleeves rolled to his forearms, his crown gone. But nothing about him was less imposing. If anything, without the trappings, he was more solid. More real. More dangerous. You're awake, he said. Yes. I set the bowl aside, suddenly aware of my bare feet beneath the blanket, of my hair unbound, of how small I must look in his territory. How do you feel? Better, I admitted. Thank you. He studied my face, my posture, the color returning to my skin. You ate. Yes. Good. Silence stretched. He crossed the room and took the chair near the hearth, sitting rather than looming. The simple choice eased something tight inside me. You didn't answer me earlier, he said. Why were you starving? I hesitated. The truth was not dramatic. Just small. And smallness has a way of feeling embarrassing in grand rooms. I don't have a pack, I said. I never really did. His eyes sharpened slightly. I was born into one, I continued, but when my wolf didn't present at 16, they decided I was wrong. Not worth feeding. Not worth defending. His jaw clenched. So I left, I said. I thought the city would be easier. That there would be work. Or at least scraps. There were not. No. How long? 2 years. The word seemed to echo. He leaned back, one hand lifting to press briefly against his sternum, as if something there had tightened. Why did you come to the palace? He asked. I smelled food, I said honestly. And thought maybe, if I moved quickly enough, I could take a plate and disappear. And if you'd succeeded? He asked. I gave a faint shrug. I'd have eaten for one night. His gaze held mine. And then? I had no answer. Something flickered across his face then. Not pity. Anger. Cold. Contained. Stay, he said again. I don't belong here, I replied softly. That, he said, is not for you to decide. My spine straightened. I won't be kept as charity. His eyes met mine, something sharp and attentive there. Good, he said. I don't offer charity. He rose. Crossed to stand in front of me. I am offering you residence, he continued. Protection. And the right to choose whether you remain. I don't understand why, I said. He looked at me for a long moment. Then reached up and undid the top fastening of his shirt. Just one. Enough to bare the skin above his heart. Faint, darkened veins traced beneath the surface. Not scars. Not wounds. Something wrong. Because, he said quietly, my body is killing itself. My breath caught. What? Slowly, he continued. Without visible injury. Without healer explanation. My wolf cannot mend it. My strength fades in increments no one else notices yet. He lifted his gaze back to mine. And when I touched you, it stopped. I stared. That isn't possible. I thought the same, he said. Until the pain I've lived with for 7 years went silent in my hands. 7 years. You felt weak to me, he continued. But when I caught you, when your pulse came against my palm. His fingers curled once. My wolf rose. What does that mean? I whispered. His mouth tightened. It means you are either the rarest accident this kingdom has ever seen, or the only reason its king is still standing. The weight of that pressed the air from my lungs. You don't know anything about me, I said. I know you walked into a mating ball starving, he replied. I know you fainted rather than begged. And I know when you were in my arms, the thing slowly killing me lost its grip. I swallowed. What are you asking? I am asking you to stay, he said. Not as a servant. Not as a secret. As my guest. And if what I felt was not coincidence. His eyes darkened. Then is something far more dangerous. My hands trembled. People will talk, I said. They already are. Someone will try to make me leave. They already will. The bluntness startled me. You are not safe here, he continued. Not from my court. Not from my council. And not from those who profit from my decline. I looked up. Your decline? His gaze drifted briefly to the fire. There are men who sit at my table because they expect my throne to be empty soon, he said. They will not welcome a variable. You mean me? Yes. Fear stirred. But you're still asking me to stay. He looked back at me. I am not asking, he said quietly. I am offering. And if you accept. He took a breath. You will be choosing a life that can no longer be quiet. I thought of alleys. Of cold stone. Of counting crumbs. Of my wolf sleeping so deeply I sometimes wondered if she was dead. What happens if I say no? I asked. I will see you safely placed, he said. With food. With work. With protection. And then? His jaw tightened. Then the pain will return. I searched his face. For manipulation. For cruelty. For entitlement. I found none. Only something carefully held. Why are you so calm about that? I asked. Because, he said, I have been dying for a long time. The word struck something in my chest. I don't know what I am to you, I said. I don't even know what I am to myself. That, he replied, is why I am not offering you a crown. I am offering you time. Time. A bed. Warmth. Choice. All the things hunger had stripped from me. If I stay, I said, it will be because I choose to. His eyes softened fractionally. Good. Silence stretched between us again. Then, unexpectedly, he asked, May I touch you? The question startled me more than the revelation. You already have, I said. Yes, he replied. But not like this. He extended his hand, palm open, stopping well short of me. May I? I hesitated. Then slowly placed my fingers into his. The contact was instant. Not explosive. Not dramatic. But, steady. Warmth flowed from his skin into mine. And something deep inside my chest shifted. My wolf stirred. Not fully. But enough that my breath caught. His eyes widened. He inhaled sharply. There, he whispered. What? I asked. He didn't answer. He simply tightened his grip slightly, grounding rather than claiming, as if he were afraid of breaking something. I will not touch you without permission, he said. I will not bind you without choice. And I will not lie to you about the danger. He looked down at our joined hands. But Ophelia, if you stay. His thumb brushed once over my knuckles. You will not starve again. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear slipped onto our fingers. I'll stay, I said. Not because he was a king. Not because he was powerful. Because he had asked. And because for the first time in years, someone had wanted me awake. His eyes closed briefly. When he opened them, something fierce and quiet lived there. Then, he said, "Welcome to the castle." He released my hand. But the warmth lingered. And long after he left the room, my wolf did not go back to sleep. I learned very quickly that castles do not whisper. They hum. With footsteps and silk. With murmured alliances and the rustle of secrets traded in corridors where the light never quite reaches the corners. Even in the East Wing, where King Alaric had placed me, far from the public halls, I felt it. The weight of being observed. The faint prickle at the back of my neck that told me I was no longer invisible. Servants knew my name. Guards watched me with careful eyes. And courtiers I had never met somehow already hated me. My body was changing. Not dramatically. Not in ways anyone else would notice. But I felt it. The faint tremor in my hands was gone. My joints no longer ached when I stood. My skin warmed more easily. Food no longer passed through me like a ghost. Each morning, Mara brought trays of carefully balanced meals. Each evening, healers came to check my progress, though they often spent more time whispering to one another than examining me. And every day, sometimes twice, King Alaric came. Never announced. Never guarded. Always quietly. Sometimes he sat. Sometimes he walked the room. Sometimes he said very little at all. But every time, he watched me like someone monitoring a miracle they did not trust. The first time he touched me again was accidental. I was crossing the room too quickly, still unused to the sweep of gowns and the echo of space, and I stumbled. His hand caught my elbow. The reaction was immediate. His breath stuttered. My wolf surged like she had been struck awake. Not violently. But fully. A deep warmth spread through my ribs. My vision sharpened. The world pulled into focus. And something in his face eased. He released me instantly. "I'm sorry," he said at the same time I did. We stood there, too close, too aware. "You felt it," he murmured. "Yes." Stronger than before. I nodded. He drew a slow breath, visibly steadying himself. Then, as if forcing distance into existence, he stepped back. "I will have the healers run more tests," he said. Discreetly. "You don't want your council to know," I said. His jaw tightened. "I don't want them to speculate. They already are." His eyes lifted. "What have you heard?" I hesitated. Then told him. About the way servants fell silent when I passed. About the woman in blue silk who had called me a decorative illness. About the way one of the junior ministers had stared at me like I was something rotting brought into a clean house. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded once. "Good," he said. "Good?" "Yes," he replied. "Because if they have noticed you." His eyes darkened. "Then whatever you are to me is real." I should have been comforted. I was not. The invitation arrived 3 days later. A small cream card, edged in gold. Dinner in the Western Hall. Full court attendance. King Alaric had not brought anyone to a public meal in 7 years. Mara's hand shook when she dressed me. "They will tear you apart," she muttered. "Then don't let them sharpen their knives," I said lightly, though my stomach twisted. She glanced up at me. "You don't understand," she said. "They've been circling him for years. Waiting for him to weaken enough to crown a successor they can control. You are unexpected. So was he, I said. Mara's mouth curved faintly. She laced my gown and stepped back. You are brave, she said. No, I replied. I'm hungry. She paused. Then laughed quietly. When King Alaric arrived to escort me, he wore dark formal armor threaded with silver rather than robes. The sight of him stole breath from my lungs in a way that had nothing to do with politics. You look, he began. Then stopped. Then tried again. You look, he said, softer, like someone this court does not deserve. Heat crept into my cheeks. You don't look like a dying man, I said. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. Neither do you look like someone who fainted for lack of bread. He offered his arm. I hesitated only a moment before taking it. The contact steadied us both. The western hall was blinding. Light flared off gold and crystal. Hundreds of eyes turned as one. The doors boomed closed behind us. And suddenly, there was nowhere to hide. Whispers rippled outward like dropped glass. Who is she? Has he finally? Impossible. He doesn't. He hasn't touched anyone in. King Alaric did not slow. Did not acknowledge. He led me directly to the high table and pulled out the chair beside his own. Not below. Not behind. Beside. The sound of that chair moving might as well have been a declaration of war. Dinner began. I barely tasted the food. Across the table, council members studied me openly now. Lord Varon smiled too widely. Lady Ethis watched as if counting my breaths. And Chancellor Morcant. He did not look at me at all. He watched the king. Every time Alaric reached for his glass. Every time he shifted. Every time his shoulders tensed faintly, as if something beneath his skin were clawing. Halfway through the first course, I felt it. A spike of pain through him. Not visible. But real. His fingers tightened on the table edge. His breath went shallow. And without thinking, I placed my hand over his. The effect was instant. He stilled. Then inhaled deeply. Color returned to his skin. A murmur passed through the hall. He did not pull away. He turned his hand beneath mine. Laced our fingers. And held on. Chancellor Morcant finally looked at me. And I understood. That was the moment he decided I had to die. The attack did not come that night. It came the next morning. I was walking the garden paths with Mara when the first arrow struck the stone beside my foot. The second would have taken my throat. A hand slammed into my back. I hit the ground hard as a dark shape passed over me. The arrow buried itself in the hedge where my head had been. Guards poured from nowhere. Shouts split the air. Mara screamed my name. And King Alaric. King Alaric moved like something unleashed. He crossed the distance in a blur, dropping beside me, hands already searching for blood. Where? He demanded. I'm not hit, I gasped. His eyes glowed. Not metaphorically. Actually. A molten gold burning under the gray. The garden shook with the force of his roar. They found the body an hour later. A young guard. Poisoned. A planted weapon. A warning. King Alaric ordered the gates sealed. The council convened immediately. I was not invited. That did not stop me from listening. I stood outside the chamber doors, heart hammering, Mara wringing her hands beside me. They are blaming you, she whispered. I know. He will protect you. He can't protect me from everything. The doors burst open. The king emerged. His face was stone. Inside, he said. The room fell silent when I entered. Morcant's mouth thinned. Your Majesty, he began. With respect, this woman's presence has already resulted in bloodshed. Yes, Alaric said. Mine. A ripple moved the table. She is unvetted, Morcant pressed. Unaligned. Unknown. Her influence on your health is not worth destabilizing the throne. She is the reason the throne still has a king, Alaric replied coldly. Morkan turned to me. What are you? He demanded. I lifted my chin. I am someone you tried to kill, I said. The silence that followed was thick. Alaric's hand closed around mine. Touch her again, he said quietly, and I will burn your counsel to its bones. I felt his pain ease beneath my palm. Felt my wolf rise fully for the first time in my life. Not as a whisper, but as a presence. Alive. Aware. Watching. The council broke. But the war did not. And as Alaric led me back to the east wing, his grip never loosened. Ophelia, he said once the doors closed. Yes? You are no longer merely under my protection. He turned to face me. You are under my claim. My breath caught. I don't know what that means, I whispered. It means, he said, lifting my hand to his chest, that anyone who wants you gone. His heart beat steady beneath my palm. Will have to kill me first. And something deep in my chest answered. Low. Powerful. Hungry. I began to feel it before he admitted it. Not through rumor. Not through servants. Through my own body. There were mornings when I woke restless, my chest tight, my wolf pacing beneath my skin like she sensed a storm she couldn't yet see. On those days, King Alaric always arrived pale, jaw clenched, eyes rimmed with shadows he could not hide. At first, he still tried. Tried to stand straight. Tried to joke. Tried to pretend the ache in his bones was nothing more than exhaustion. But the closer I stayed, the harder it became for him to lie. Because when I touched him, the pain eased. And when I didn't, it came roaring back. It was happening more often now. Not dramatic collapses. Not obvious weakness. But moments. Tiny fractures in his control. A tightening of his fingers around a goblet. A breath held too long. A half-step misjudged. Once, while he and I stood at the balcony overlooking the eastern cliffs, he swayed. Only slightly. But enough. I caught his arm. His entire body shuddered. And the relief that swept through him at my touch was so strong it hurt. He exhaled like a man surfacing from deep water. Alaric, I whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't even open his eyes. Alaric, I said again, firmer. His forehead dropped to rest against my hair. They're accelerating it, he murmured. My stomach clenched. Who? The council, he said. Or at least one of them. Someone has altered my drafts. The tonics meant to slow the damage. To do what? To finish it. Cold flooded my veins. Why haven't you told anyone? I have, he said. But not who matters. Why not me? His arms tightened around me. Because if I said it aloud to you, he whispered, it would mean accepting that they are willing to kill me to reach you. My wolf snarled. Not inside him. Inside me. I pulled back enough to look up at his face. You don't get to protect me from the truth, I said. I'm not protecting you, he replied softly. I'm trying not to break. My anger faltered. I don't understand, I said. He studied me for a long moment. Then took my hand. Led me to the hearth. And sat. Pulling me down beside him. They're not poisoning me to kill me, he said quietly. They're poisoning me to force succession. My breath caught. Every dose weakens the bond between my wolf and my body, he continued. The less connected I am, the less command I hold. The more unstable the throne becomes. And eventually? I'll either die, he said. Or become something they can control. I stared at him. They want a king they can wear. Yes. And you staying here is stopping that. He nodded once. Because when you touch me, the decay halts. And whatever they're using, whatever spell or compound they've designed, It can't override what your presence restores. I didn't know what to say. I only knew my hands were shaking. So they'll come for me again, I whispered. They already have. And you think keeping this from me would make me safer? His mouth curved faintly. No. I think knowing it would make you brave. I lifted my gaze. Is that supposed to stop me? No, he said. It's supposed to make me honest. The fire cracked. I don't want to be the thing that keeps you alive, I said. You're not, he replied. You're the thing reminding my body how. That night, I dreamed of fire. Not destruction. Connection. I dreamed of standing in the middle of a dark forest, my hands glowing, threads of light weaving outward, binding something vast and wounded back into itself. When I woke, my wolf was no longer silent. She was awake. Fully. And she was afraid. The next attempt came disguised as kindness. Mara had just left when a servant arrived with tea. New face. Young. Eyes down. Compliments of the Chancellor, he said quietly. My body reacted before my mind did. My wolf pressed forward. Not snarling. Listening. The scent was wrong. Sweet. Metallic beneath the herbs. Set it there, I said, gesturing to the table farthest from me. He did. Bowed. Left. I did not touch the cup. Instead, I wrapped it in cloth and carried it straight to the healers. They didn't need to taste it. The color alone was enough. The castle went into lockdown within the hour. And Morkan vanished. They found him in the southern tunnels. Dead. Throat crushed. No signs of struggle. No poison in his system. No confession. But in his chambers, they found the ledger. Names. Routes. Recipes. Records of altered tonics. Payment trails. And one final note written in a meticulous hand. She is not salvation. She is interference. Remove her, and the king will follow. Alaric stared at that line for a long time. Then he folded the paper. And burned it. The third night after, he collapsed. Not in court. Not before witnesses. In my room. I was brushing my hair when he staggered at the threshold. His breath hitched. His hand flew to his chest. I crossed the room in 2 strides. Caught him as his knees buckled. He was burning. Fevered. His skin damp. His wolf writhed beneath his. It's stronger, he gasped. Whatever they gave me last, it's tearing through the bond. I dragged him to the bed. He tried to pull away. No, he breathed. If I lose control. Then I'll hold you, I said. And if I can't? Then I'll hold you anyway. I pressed my palm to his sternum. The effect was weaker than before. Not absent. But slowed. His breath shuddered. My chest tightened. What's happening? I whispered. He shook his head. I don't know, he said. But whatever they built into it, it's learning. Fear flared. Then we have to stop it. I don't know how. Yes, you do, I said. His eyes lifted. You're just afraid of it. He swallowed. You don't know what happens when wolves bind without balance. I know what happens when kings die alone. He closed his eyes. My wolf will claim you, he said hoarsely. Not court. Not protect. Claim. And if it overwhelms you, then I'll face it, I said. Not starve around it. His jaw trembled. You could lose yourself. So could you. Silence stretched. Then slowly. He nodded. The air in the room changed. Not pressure. Awareness. His pupils widened. Gold bled through gray. His breath deepened. Lower. My wolf rose to meet his. Not submissive. Not challenging. Recognizing. I climbed onto the bed. Sat astride his legs. Placed both palms over his heart. The bond flared. Not heat. Light. It poured from him into me. From me into him. My vision blurred. I gasped. Something ancient stirred. His hands gripped my waist. Not possessive. Anchoring. His body arched. Pain broke from him in a sound I felt in my bones. I leaned down. Pressed my forehead to his. I'm here, I whispered. I'm not leaving. The power surged. Not violent. Corrective. I felt his wolf. Massive. Wounded. Terrified of its own unraveling. I didn't push. I didn't command. I opened. Let him rest where the hunger had hollowed me. The pain receded. Not gone. But quieter. He collapsed against the pillows. Breathing hard. Eyes human again. You could have broken, he whispered. So could you, I said. But you didn't. Neither did he. And as I lay beside him, his arm heavy across my waist, my wolf did not retreat. She stayed awake. Watching. Ready. At dawn, a guard knocked. Urgent. Your Majesty, he called. We've lost the eastern convoy. Alaric was on his feet instantly. What? Poison. All draft components destroyed. And one of the healers is missing. My blood went cold. They're running, I said. Yes, Alaric replied. And they're taking the knowledge with them. He turned to me. They're not trying to kill me anymore. Then what? They're trying to remove the cure. He took my hands. And that means they will not stop. I searched his face. Then neither will we. Something fierce moved through his eyes. Good, he said. Because if they want a war. His grip tightened. They have just declared one. And my wolf held an agreement. By the time the bells rang at midday, the entire castle knew. Something had shifted. Servants moved faster. Guards doubled the gates. Messengers rode out in every direction. And in every corridor I passed through, I felt it. Not hostility. Not yet. Expectation. They were waiting to see whether the king would stand or fall. Alaric dressed in full regalia for the first time since I had met him. Not ceremonial finery. War attire. Black armor etched with silver runes. The crest of his wolf at his shoulder. His crown was not gold today, but dark steel. When he turned from the mirror, the man before me did not look broken. He looked like a reckoning. You shouldn't come, he said quietly. I'm already here, I replied. His jaw tightened. If today goes wrong, then I'll be beside you when it does. He studied my face. You don't yet understand what you are, he said. Then stop trying to keep me small enough to survive it. Something flickered across his expression. Not fear. Relief. He crossed the room in 2 strides and took my face in his hands, pressing his forehead to mine. My council believes I will name a successor today, he said. They believe the cure has been lost. They believe the king is about to weaken publicly. Let them. They will test me. Good. They will provoke. Even better. He breathed out slowly. And when they do. I placed my palm to his chest. You won't stand alone. The great hall was already full. Every noble house. Every council seat. Every military order. The resonance of tension was a living thing. Alaric mounted the dais. I stood at his right. The murmuring did not stop. Chancellor Morkant's chair remained empty. His absence was a wound. And wounds make people bold. Lord Varon rose. Your Majesty, he said smoothly. We are grateful you have called this session. The instability of the court has concerned many. Yes, Alaric said. It has. And given recent events, Baron continued, the disappearance of our healing drafts, the unrest among the guard, the presence of an unvetted outsider. I slid toward me. We feel it is time to address the succession. The hall murmured. I felt Alaric's muscles tighten. And beneath my skin, my wolf leaned forward. You feel I am dying, Alaric said. Baron inclined his head. We feel the realm cannot risk waiting. Alaric nodded once. Then you are correct to speak. Relief flickered across several faces. Before we proceed, Baron added, there is the matter of influence. Of contamination. We cannot allow. His words cut off. Alaric swayed. Just slightly. Gasps rippled. I felt it. The sudden spike of agony through him. Whatever they had done. It was still working. Baron's mouth curved. And in that instant, something inside me broke open. Not gently. Not carefully. The hunger I had lived with for years. The emptiness. The quiet. The invisibility. All of it ignited. I stepped forward. Placed both hands over Alaric's heart. And did not limit myself. I didn't channel. I didn't guide. I opened. The bond did the rest. Power surged through me like blood finally remembering its purpose. Not wild. Focused. Corrective. I felt his wolf rise fully. Not writhing. Not wounded. Whole. His spine straightened. The glow in his eyes burned molten. The air in the hall pressed outward as if the mountain itself had exhaled. Several nobles staggered back. Baron's smile vanished. Alaric inhaled deeply. Once. Twice. Then he laughed. Low. Disbelieving. Alive. Succession, he repeated. I am not abdicating. The words struck like thunder. And I am not weakened. He lifted his hand. The room stilled. What you have mistaken for decay, he said, was interference. Murmurs rose. I have been poisoned, he continued calmly. By members of this council. By those who wished to manufacture a king. Gasps. Baron's face went white. And the reason I still stand, Alaric said, turning slightly toward me, is because the woman you tried to erase refused to let me fall. Every eye in the hall locked on me. You called her contamination, he said. A liability. A variable. He turned fully. She is correction. The guards moved. Baron stumbled back. This is madness, he said. You're enthralled. Alaric's hand lifted. Baron dropped to his knees. Not struck. Not touched. Forced. By dominance so complete his wolf could not breathe beneath it. You altered my body, Alaric said quietly. You attempted to starve my wolf out of me. He looked down at the man who had smiled while I almost died. And you thought I wouldn't notice when it stopped. The hall was silent. You will be tried, Alaric said. You will answer for every ledger, every draft, every guard, every corpse. He turned away. And then he did something no one expected. He took my hand. And lowered himself. The sound of armor hitting stone rang through the hall. The Alpha King of the realm went to one knee. Before me. Gasps became shouts. Alaric, someone breathed. He did not look away from my face. You came to my door starving, he said. And instead of asking, you fainted. A faint smile curved his mouth. You did not beg. You did not bargain. You did not bind. You stood when you could no longer stand. My chest tightened. And you rose, he continued, when my kingdom could not. His hand tightened around mine. My wolf knows you. My body heals through you. My crown stands because of you. He drew a breath. Ophelia of no pack, he said, voice carrying through the hall. Will you stand with me? Not as shelter. Not as necessity. But as choice. Tears blurred my vision. I looked at the hall. At the council. At the court that had wanted me gone. Then back to the man who had caught me when I collapsed. I choose you, I said. The words rang. Clear. True. Something ancient answered. The air rippled. I felt it then. Not a bond forming. A bond recognizing itself. His wolf surged. Mine rose to meet it. And for the first time in my life, she did not feel like hunger. She felt like a throne. Alaric stood. And pulled me into him. His lips pressed to my brow. Then my cheek. Then my mouth. The hall erupted. But I only felt him. The heat of him. The steadiness. The way his breath deepened when I was close. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine. My queen, he said. Not to the court. To me. The trial lasted weeks. The poisoners were named. The healers confessed. The routes were burned. And slowly, carefully, the rot was cut out. But none of it mattered the way the mornings did. The way he no longer woke in pain. The way my wolf no longer slept in hunger. The way the castle had begun to feel like a place that knew my name. I did not become queen in a coronation. I became queen the first night he slept without flinching. The first time I ate without fear. The first time I stood beside him and did not shrink. I had come to his doors starving. I stayed because he saw me. And I ruled because I finally saw myself. Not as a girl who collapsed. But as a woman who rose. And when the Alpha King took my hands in his and pressed them to his heart, I no longer wondered if love was worth the danger. Because I was no longer something fragile to be protected. I was the hunger that had become a throne. Thank you for spending this time in another world with me. Thank you for spending this time in another world with me. If you enjoyed this story, support the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who loves fantasy romance. More stories are already waiting for you. This is Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales, and I'll see you in the next one.